Hey y'all, welcome back to another video. I'm sitting here in front of our newly dug pond on the farm and wanted to talk you through our reasoning and the design considerations and background on the location and uses of this pond. It's very exciting. We had been assessing this site as viable for a pond since pretty much the time we got here. This whole section of our farm tends to be extremely wet. You see a lot of anaerobic loving species, different sedges and rushes and wetland plants. And we started to test to see if this would be viable as a groundwater fed pond by going to the header of one of these ditches. So previously there are two ditches facilitating drainage off the pasture, and we dug an initial test pit about 6 feet deep, 6 feet wide, and about 3 feet long, just to get below the clay surface and see how quickly it would fill with groundwater and if it would hold that groundwater. The following year, we had the test pit made more into a test pond, about a 10-foot radius pond at the same depth, to see how a bigger pit essentially would hold water for a season. And once we assessed that not only did it fill with groundwater rapidly, but that it would hold water even through dry times, we felt comfortable building a pond here as a groundwater fed pond. So there's no diversion of any surface flow, which is how a lot of ponds are designed. But we don't have a creek or a stream or a spring in anywhere on the property that makes sense to build a pond. This is, as you may be able to tell from my proximity to the barns and the tunnels and the gardens, in a very central location. Now, when they were digging, they were really going off of their observation to determine the depth. The soil profile in here is really interesting. There's about a foot of topsoil and then about 4 feet of clay, really thick clay, the type of stuff that we could sell to pottery makers, as you can kind of see here. And then below that, it opens up into a coarse gravel-like layer with sand and stone. So there was some concern about that sub-clay layer holding water if they went deeper than the clay. But what they found was that beneath that coarse sand layer with the gravel bits, you actually just hit bedrock. And so very poor drainage in bedrock, clearly. And what we've observed in now 3 weeks since the pond dig got finished, not only has it been filling with water, but there's no sign of water leakage. Since it's so new of an install, it looks a bit like a meteor hit the ground and started filling with water. But we've seeded a bunch of native grasses, native wildflowers, and even started planting some aquatic plants. We were gifted pickerel weed and some lily pads from the folks who dug the pond, transplanted a couple irises that volunteered up in a wet spot on the farm. And so it'll be a process, but I expect by mid to late summer, this will be very different looking. It'll be fully lush and vegetated. The pond will be full and teeming with wildlife, giving us a place to cool off nearby the gardens, one of the central hubs of work on the farm, acting, like I said, as wildlife habitat. And the functional purpose outside of those things is backup irrigation and water source. Now, it's important to design for redundancy, and in our context, up at the top of the hill behind the tunnel there, we have a really good well that runs at about 25 gallons per minute, and the electric to the pump is hooked up to an off-grid solar system with a battery bank. So even when the power was out during the hurricane, we never lost water. And that was a really good test of the resiliency of our system. But, you know, in addition to recreation and wildlife, having a high volume backup source of water, just in case something goes wrong so that farm operations can continue, is an important thing if you can make it happen. Now, even during the dig, the operators were describing finding frogs and turtles and even fish in the test pond. It's really been incredible in such a short amount of time introducing this habitat. The frog life has exploded, not just in the pond, but around the gardens as well. We've started noticing great blue herons circling overhead. Barn swallows in the evening towards dusk are swooping over the pond, catching insects, and dragonflies perching on the aquatic plants. So build it and they will come, they say, and seems true here. Very excited to watch this develop and all the life that will emerge from this new space on the farm. Now, we were fortunate that the digger and the pond engineer were personal connections that we had. The UNC Asheville soils class, which I took when I was in school there, their professor has been having annual field trips at Wild East because we let them come out and dig big soil profile pits with a mini excavator so that they can get students actually down 6 feet deep, standing in the pit and studying at eye level the soil horizons at different parts of the farm. So not only is it a very enriching learning experience for them, but we also get to learn what's going on around the farm, not just in the topsoil, which obviously we're most interested in, but also informing the underground hydrological implications of different soil horizons, just assessing and thinking through potentially previous land use considerations on a human level, and also different geological scale events. So we've learned different places that we can infer that the creek on the farm has meandered over the centuries and millennia. And it's been a great relationship. But that's all to say, in his off time, that professor and his father-in-law do some excavator work. So they came out as a really impactful team, with the professor having the book knowledge and skill on machinery to think through and design a pond and understand what's really going on a scientific basis with the soil and how that informs the decision making. And his father-in-law is an expert excavator operator, and so they worked smoothly and got this job done in just 4.5 days of work. Thanks for watching another video, folks. Very excited to have this pond on the farm. Like I said, we pretty much picked this exact site before we even moved here, actually, as an ideal pond location. And I'm going to be documenting its development as it matures and vegetates and fills up fully. But just wanted to take you through some of our thinking, the design process and background behind the new pond at Wild East Farm. Please check out Small Scale's new website in the description below and see our offerings. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.